Well, we are less than 2 months into the second term of a Donald Trump presidency. He's taking credit for unprecedented action on a number of key issues, both foreign and domestic. But critics say he's also doing unprecedented damage.
Between the recent joint address to Congress and the federal spending cuts to the war with Russia and Ukraine and a search for peace between Israel and Hamas, there's a lot on the agenda.
That's right. Joining us to break it all down, political science professor Scott LeDeur from North Central Michigan College. Scott, thanks for being here. Let's start with the joint address to Congress. At one point, he started off by saying, I've done more in 40 some days than some presidents do in 8 years. A marathon 2-hour-long speech and a particularly partisan response as usual.
Yeah, a lot of presidents like to claim kind of really quick action, especially in the first 100 days or the first, 6 months or something. So that wasn't quite out of pattern with other presidents. He did take a lot of credit for decreasing immigration numbers and then credited his own kind of proclamations on this as the cause. But otherwise, he kept returning to similar themes from his campaign as well as from his inaugural address, echoing the need for, higher tariffs, reduce federal spending. What he didn't really do was solve any log jams in Congress that Republican leadership is trying to solve, such as how do we fund a government where the funding runs out on March 14th, what approach to take to tax cuts and potential cuts to other parts of the budget. He again kind of left himself a lot of room there and was somewhat vague, pushing the ball to Capitol Hill and letting those leaders sort it out.
And Scott, Michigan Senator Lisa Slotkin had the Democrats' response. What do you make of her comments and the party as a whole trying to counter the president's moves?
Yeah, giving the response to the State of the Union or a joint address to Congress is such a tough job. Very few people do it really well. The party normally tries to tap a kind of up-and-coming person or someone who is new to the scene. And Slotkin stressed a lot of the Democratic complaints and argument lines against President Trump. The extent to which that moves the needle at all is not really a big function. People don't really pay attention to the opposition's response to a kind of big presidential address like this. That being said, it was a good slot for Senator Slotkin to have, a sign that the party sees her as a leader going forward. But there was no huge news coming from her response speech to the president.
It does feel, at least to me, like any optimism from 2 months ago about, both sides maybe working together has kind of faded as we see party line vote after party line vote on whether it's budgets or Senate confirmations or whatnot. Scott, let's quickly move on to tariffs, constantly in flux, but let's just talk more broadly about the impact that those are having, not only financially for the country, but also politically.
Yeah, a tariff, again, for anyone who isn't quite familiar with it, is a tax that a government puts on a imported good, one that crosses the border into the country. The object of a tariff is to raise the price of foreign-made goods so that consumers at a store or in retail environments might choose one produced within the United States, which would theoretically be cheaper. Trump's goal with this, as he has said many times, and he said in the joint address, is an attempt to bring production and jobs from other countries back to the United States, where presumably a product could be made for less and thus sell more in the United States. This is a really, really tough economic, triple flip to try to land. In the short run, economies are not very elastic, and with 25, 30 years of the North American Free Trade Agreement, and you see this in the auto industry and tons of other industries, production is spread across 3 different countries. And so quick fixes to that are not going to be very apparent. Plus, I think what we're starting to see is that the president has signaled that he is flexible on these tariffs. And so we saw today that the president announced that auto industry would be given a 1-month extension. No guarantee that 1 month doesn't turn into 6 months or longer. And so what businesses are going to find is it's going to be difficult for them to plan, and or they're going to be jockeying, trying to get influence in the White House so that the administration makes some exceptions for them or carves out their industry, and that will make competition, more robust competition, less possible because some industries will be favored sons and others won't. And it makes it difficult for businesses to plan 6 months, a year, 3 years from now. In the short run, what it will mean for consumers is higher prices on some goods. I think the president's goal is that long term, those jobs come back. But that is long term, and those investments take a long time to develop.
Right.
And with a 4-year term, it might be difficult to know whether these tariffs go on that much longer in the future, making those investments less profitable.
And looking at things with Ukraine, there was a blow-up meeting in the Oval Office. Critics on both sides saying it doesn't look good. Do you think it was just a strategy to move towards peace, or is it more of a setback?
It's so hard to tell at this point. What the Trump administration has signaled and what they've been very clear on is they want an end to this, but they haven't necessarily set out what the end game looks like. What is each side going to get in any kind of final deal? And the longer that goes, the more it is dangerous for Ukraine. It has been fairly clear on what Ukraine's not going to get. They're not going to get NATO membership, and they're not going to get their whole country back. They're essentially, the U.S. capitulated on Russia will control the areas that Russia controls now. It's unclear what Ukraine gets necessarily, as they don't seem to be in line for a security guarantee. And it's unclear how we keep Putin at bay when he has shown a tendency to violate these red lines in the past.
Right.
So exactly what the end game looks like is not clear, and the longer the end game is not clear, the worse it is for Ukraine.
Yeah.
One more minute with you and one more question, Scott. Let's just quickly dive into Israel and Hamas. The president just recently demanding an immediate release of all of the remaining hostages and calling it his final warning in a social media post. Is that showing strength, or are we making threats we can't follow through on? What's your take on really the limbo that we're in with Israel and Hamas?
It's unclear what leverage the United States has over Hamas. The Trump administration has given essentially carte blanche to the Netanyahu government in Israel. And it's unclear what other lever the United States is going to be able to throw. We don't have any funding over Hamas. We don't have any influence over them. And we've told Israel that they can do pretty much whatever they want, and we will support them. And so it's unclear what final warning means, what we're prepared to do. I don't think it means American boots on the ground or jets or missiles in the air. Israel has plenty of that already. And so I'm not entirely sure what this is all about, other than to try to ratchet up some kind of tension and pressure in Hamas. But this is already a group that has been through, both sides have been through multiple years of war. It's not clear exactly what influence we're trying to exert here.
Scott, always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for being with us from North Central Michigan College. Scott LeDeur, take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Have a great day.